The Annulus. Journey into the unknown. Through the vortex. Ysang Yong. Copyrighted 2020 Ysang Yong. All rights reserved. Chapter 22. The Vote. Zimmer and Zolan listened intently to Zuriel's presentation, and at the end of it, Speaker Zolan seemed impressed, but he had a troubled look on his face. Speaker Zolan, what you have shown me contains illegal information about nuclear technology, and yet the promised results are impressive indeed. But, and it is a big but, Professor Zimmer has to give his blessing, and there is the Council of High Priests. Professor Zimmer, we do not have the scientific research facilities to do any of this nuclear technology development. Even if we allow the research on nuclear technology to start again, we will not know if it works to save our star from dying. Speaker Zolan, I am a veteran politician, and I do not like the odds on winning the vote in the Senate on this. Zegan spoke. Speaker Zolan, I have learnt everything I know from you. I agree with you, and there is indeed much more we have that can even the odds. Zuriel will tell you. Zuriel, Mr. Speaker and Professor Zimmer, I have been preparing my research quietly in my basement over the years, and I do have the equipment that I salvaged from the old nuclear labs that my mentor Professor Dr. Zeter has used during the halcyon days of nuclear technology before the war that led to the destruction of Helius 1. Zolan, well, that is an offense that will earn you an exile to our moon. Even overlooking that, unless you have the UX metals and a lengthy period to purify the metals, we do not have basic building elements for the devices we need, not to mention live tests. Simulation can only predict so much. Zuriel, I have been looking at the materials we have collected from SOL3, and there is already UX materials that we can process and purify, but yes, it will take time to build up the facilities to produce the quantities we need. Our friends from Earth have promised to help us expedite the process. Ken, gentlemen, if you can win the vote in the Senate, we can get you the materials and much more. Zolan, I am sorry, gentlemen. While the theory may be sound and the arguments convincing to the Science Council, the time element and vague promises of assistance will not carry the debate at the Senate. There is nothing that I can help you with here. Professor Anatoly looked at Ken and then gave Zuriel a nod of his head. Zuriel acknowledged the signal and spoke. Mr. Speaker, our human friends have a secret gift that will swing any debate decision. Professor Anatoly, Mr. Speaker, we can supply the material and help you to build nuclear devices ready to deploy in a short time. Zegan, now speak the truth, do you have a nuclear device to offer to us to use in a demonstration launch at Helios or not? Professor Anatoly, alright, we have to trust each other. Yes, we can offer you the nuclear device, which is the power plant for propelling our vehicle, and help you convert it into a thermonuclear fusion device. Zolan, I think I like the odds a lot better. Zimmer, can you bring your other members on the Science Council to the same point of view and furnish a firm yes recommendation to the Senate and Supreme Council? Professor Zimmer, with all that I have been shown, I have just one question. Zuriel, do you vouch for the humans' proposal? Zuriel, Professor Zimmer, yes, with the UX material, nuclear devices, and the support of Professor Anatoly and Ken, I am confident I can. Speaker Zolan, I like what we have in our favor, but as escapees, you humans are being sought by the security personnel. They will say that it is a trick to win your freedom. Professor Anatoly, Speaker Zolan, it is no trick, and our gift of the nuclear device is conditional on Helician authorities doing what we have come to talk to you about. We want Helician authorities to recall the mass mining probes from my planet Earth and return us back to Earth. Zegan, if Science Council is with us, I know that Mr. Speaker, with your influence and support, we can win the vote in the Senate and get the Supreme Council behind the decision to overturn the nuclear ban. And Professor Zimmer, with your vote and support in the Science Council, we will have them on our side too. Speaker Zolan, but we still have to muster enough votes to override the High Priest's opposition. If I call in all my favors on this vote, yes, I think I can win this one. If so, I will petition the Supreme Council and your wishes will be granted. There is enough resentment in the Senate built up over years of arrogance and abuse of power by the High Priests. Outside, the Colonel and Sarge hid in the bushes, kept watch, and waited for any signals that the meeting inside had gone badly. Colonel and Sarge had taken one of the multi-band communicator devices from Ron and Professor Anatoly had the other to contact Colonel Owens if using the nukes was the only option left. At the same time, Colonel Owens kept trying to communicate with the habitat on the communicator but without success. Sergeant Manning, Colonel, I do not trust those damn Helicians. I think we should get back to the habitat and be ready to activate the nukes. We should make our way there ASAP and not hide in the bushes to wait for the professor to call us. Colonel Owens, Sarge, yes, I agreed with the prof that he will give us the signal should things go bad, but all our communications have not worked here on Heliu. I do not know if this is because of their force fields or something else. I want to give every chance to the prof to gain the intelligence on where to deploy the nukes. If his plan is to work, I must give him the time to sell it to the Helicians. Staying at such close range is the only way I know to maintain communications link. Let him trick the Helicians to nuke their star and set off a supernova chain reaction on the pretext of reviving its core, and we will then blow this planet Heliu with the other nukes. Sarge, Colonel, every bone in my body tells me the same thing. I say it again, I do not trust these Helicians. But you and the professor are right, if we do not have the correct intelligence on where the correct location is to set off the nukes, and how whether their energy shields will block and neutralize the blasts, we may just be wasting our lives and more importantly the nukes. Colonel, so Sarge, until we know exactly how and when and where to use them, we play alone. Clear? Sarge, yes sir, but I still do not like it. Next morning. The Grand Chamber of the Senate, the senators gathered for an extraordinary session called by the Speaker to discuss vital matters of the state. Each group of senators of the different political parties and then their factions were all wondering what critical matters of the state could have necessitated such a session to be called. The Grand Clerk of the Charter of the Senate knocked his metal hammer on the brass resonator device to call the assembly to order. The Speaker entered from the side entrance of the main dais at the back of the Grand Chamber. The House will now come to order. The Speaker of the Senate, all rose and bowed to the Speaker and the resonating oval device on the grand table on the dais. Speaker Zolan rose from his ceremonial speaker's chair and went to the lectern and addressed the Senate. Honored members of the Senate, first let me thank all of you to turning up at such short notice. I present our most senior scientist second only to our esteemed chief scientist to address us. Zuriel, most esteemed members of the Senate, Helicians as a race faces extinction as our star Helius turns into a red giant that will destroy our planetary system. We have argued, debated, about the technology, the billions of credits year on year that we scientists have spent to develop interstellar ships to save our population. And we know the results of that. Just enough ships to save a fraction of our entire population, and they would not even arrive at the destination of the nearest Heliu like H-type planets themselves. Their offspring and those kept in suspended animation will see totally unknown planets with dangerous native lifeforms and infections that may kill off a large proportion of the survivors that land. That is really the ugly and brutal reality we as a race is faced with. 50 Helician years ago, our scientists had a breakthrough and discovered the technology of dimensional gate travel, and we started sending probes out to nearby star systems to find habitable Heliu or H-type planets. The dimensional gate process shortened the transit time from Heliu to the destination planets, but the search by the probes of their destination planets have been long and largely unsuccessful. Out of thousands of planets that bear promise to be H-type planets, disappointment was the result almost every time. And when we came upon the handful of H-type planets, we found that there were hostile local fauna and flora that would make migration of our Helicians challenging indeed. Then Zekin and I came upon this idea of using the dimensional gates to send energy probes to the H-type planets to gather mass for seeding our star. Senator Zurko stood up and addressed the Senate. Why are we dragged from our families to listen your history lesson of science and its failings? Senator Zegan, because even though the scientists thought of the mechanism of mass seeding of our star, it required the essential process of atomic mass to energy critical phase change to be effective. But the Supreme Council XXII of our forefathers have imposed the total ban on both research and definitely the implementation of such technology. Zuriel, who had been stunned by Senator Zurko's critique, had recovered his composure thanks to Zegan's vigorous defense, now spoke again. To continue from Senator Zegan's timely update of dogma that has stalled us, let me emphasize our findings. Without nuclear reaction to covert the mass our probes send into Heliu, the efficiency and effectiveness is no more than 10% at best. We have been buying time to slow down the decay of our star. But now we have the solution. Speaker Zuriel rose and held up the metal striker and hit the resonator device. He spoke in a most formal tone. As Speaker of the Senate, I am invoking the Article 12A of our Constitution, shield of indemnification on Zuriel and all his words and actions in this chamber and throughout Heliu 1 until we hold a vote over his proposal. Senator Zuriel scowled but sat down to listen to the proposal. Speaker Zuriel, senior researcher Zuriel, you are now protected under the shield of indemnification. Zuriel, I want the Senate to watch the following simulation that I have prepared to show what our mass seeding of Heliu can do if we set off critical mass, energy phase changes. And the whole Senate watched the hologram projection that came alive in the middle of the Senate floor. At the end of the simulation, there was silence throughout the Senate and suddenly Zegan broke out in applause and soon everyone followed him. Zuriel seized the moment to press home his argument and position. If what I hypothesize is even half correct, our star Helios will be revived sufficiently for another 5,000 revolutions of our planet. Then that will buy us enough time to move our populations to other star systems with H-type planets. And if we can really make it work, Helios will be a rejuvenated young star again with millions of years of lifespan. Our culture and civilization can repopulate Heliu 2 and Heliu 3 once again. Senator Zuriel, how do we know if your hypothesis is totally wrong? Atomic research has been banned for generations. So how can we find out? Zuriel started the next part of the simulation and scenes of the live atomic bomb test firings and followed by computer simulations of nuclear explosions conducted on Earth, after the test ban treaty, were flashed before the entire Senate. The entire emphasis was how mankind could stop on the brink of nuclear disaster during the Cuban Missile Crisis, and on a few other occasions and focus on peaceful exploitation and development of peaceful nuclear applications including power generation and research. The demonstration stopped and Zuriel spoke up to bring home his message. There is no doubt that other civilizations have avoided the bitter lessons we have learnt. There is no doubt that we can once again embark on peaceful nuclear research and exploitation of the power of the atom. In our specific case, there is no doubt we critically need to apply nuclear technology to save our dying star. Zuriel, not so fast, Zuriel. Kindly explain clearly what proposition is being brought before the Senate? Zuriel, we need Senate support to approach the Supreme Council to remove the ban on atomic technology research and have funding approved for installing atomic devices into our launch vehicles to Helios. Zegan took the floor and announced, displayed on your personal handset is the proposal and budget numbers for this bold venture. I move the motion to approve Zuriel's proposal, and to bring it to the Supreme Council for final clearance. Speaker Zuriel, I call for a vote. All those who support, press the green key in the mimic on your communications. The senators burst into noisy chatter. Every senator was checking with each other on what is the mood on the Senate floor, whether it was in favor of such a momentous vote. Zuriel walked into the side wings of the Senate chamber and activated his communicator, calling Chief Priest Zevon. This is Senator Zuriel. Zevon's face appeared on the communications unit. My old friend Senator Zuriel. What is it you want from this now? Zuriel, there is information I wish to trade for your support. Zevon, Senator Zuriel, I am busy and occupied with state affairs of the highest urgency. I do not have time for your political games. Zuriel, Zevon, we have had dealings with each other before. You know that my offers are worth every one of yours that you trade off with me. What I bring to you now is certainly linked to grave situation your priesthood is faced with now. Zevon, quickly then, what do you have for me? I have a general alert for the visitors from SOL3. One of our scientists has also disappeared, most likely in cahoots with the visitors. Zuriel, the Senate is hearing a proposal from Zuriel, the missing scientist, as we speak, voting to bring a motion to the Supreme Council to remove the ban on atomic technology research. Zevon, well, a High Priest Council has defeated similar motions before at the Supreme Council level. Why should this be any different? Zuriel, because the missing scientist just did a presentation that may just succeed to secure a supermajority vote here to override the opposition from you and your priests. And there is technology and footage of hologram images that is non-Helician. I know because I am your main ally in the Senate, and we have rejected the Science Council on this same issue a dozen times in the last 10 Heliu annual periods. You know I am familiar with all our past research on atomic technology. What was presented, I think, is likely to be from the visitors. There was silence from Zevon for a few seconds, and then Zevon spoke with vehemence. I will send Zachary and a security contingent over there to halt the proceedings at once. Zurko knows Zevon that will create a constitutional crisis. I must vote now, but from what my compatriots here in my faction are telling me, you are too late. The ayes will have it and the supermajority vote will be passed. I will contact you with the latest developments shortly. Back in the Senate chamber, Zurko could see the tide of votes going the way of the motion. He decided to abstain to hedge his bets on this totally unexpected new political development. Speaker Zoelin, with all votes counted, the motion is passed with a supermajority. Zevon summoned Zekin to the Grand Chamber of High Priests. He met Zekin at a side entrance and led him through a labyrinth of semi-dark passages and winding stairs into the bowels of the grounds below the Grand Chamber building. Zekin, Zevon, it has been one Heliu annual period since we have come this way. Please stop. We are not wearing protective clothing, and you know the rays of energy from the underground atomic plant are harmful to living creatures. Zevon, Zekin, do not talk down to me. The office-bearer of the chief priesthood and a few of chosen associates of the high priesthood have had custody and care of this facility for over 5 generations. This was handed to me when I assumed the office of the chief high priest. We are in the safe zone, and for the short duration of this conversation, I assure you we are safe. Zevon paused and continued, as chief scientist, you are one of the few from the sympathetic faction of the scientific community, all of whom have been sworn to protect the relic of our atomic past, the atomic engine that lies within these Protem-B, PB2, walls. The reason I have brought you here is to impress on you the severity of our situation. Our control over this nuclear technology is being threatened by Zuriel. He is now in cahoots with his friend Senator Zegan and has forced a vote in the Senate to petition the Supreme Council to overturn the generations-old ban on nuclear technology. Zegan, is that not good for us, as we will be able to get fuel for the atomic engine much easier? Zevon, no. You have lost control of your senior researcher Zuriel, who is now aiding and abetting the intruders from SOL3. The Senate has just passed a vote to appeal to the Supreme Council to remove the ban on atomic technology research. We cannot allow that to happen. Our priesthood has always maintained our hold over the Helician Society due to our ability to provide the energy that seems endless and without means of depending on the dying Helios star of our system. And may I remind you, the chief scientist position you hold depends on the votes of the high priest office. The high priests weaken, you will lose your position. Zekin, then I have to share more bad news with you. Before your chief security officer Zachary completed his security check of the loading bay for the fugitives, he did a total sensor sweep and sent the readings of all sensors to my main office. I analyzed these readings before you messaged me to come to this meeting. They show elevated levels of radiation in the loading bay where the SOL vehicle is quarantined. There is a strong risk that we have a more immediate threat to our power. I strongly suspect the SOL visitors possess atomic devices on their vehicle. Zevon, that leaves us no choice but to seize those devices with whatever means we have. No one can know of their existence, and we will have to do all it takes to ensure that. I will activate the security guards from all the temples in the vicinity to assemble at the loading bay at once within one time period. Zekin, alright, but do remember my point about the status of the atomic plant in this and other facilities that I have been monitoring on behalf of the Council of High Priests. We will need any nuclear material we seize from the humans to replenish our atomic power plants. The waste fuel we have transferred from their planet takes too long to purify for use in the atomic power plants. Zevon, Zekin, this information must be kept hidden from everyone outside of the select group in the High Priest Council and you and your trusted scientists. I hope you have not told Zuriel. Zekin, not never, especially if he is now in cahoots with the visitors. I do not know if he is aware of the nuclear devices possessed by the humans. And we must not let him know that we have been diverting the UX materials from SOL3 to your vaults below this building. Zevon, I just received a copy of the presentation from my contact in the Senate. Your senior researcher Zuriel showed the use of nuclear devices and the introduction of AX1 compounds, hydrogen the humans call it, and through a theoretical process that our ancient scientists have developed, replenishes the AX1 fuel in Helios and stops the AX2 reaction, helium the name the humans call it, and Helius gains thousands more years of lifespan. The Senate ate all this good news up, and it was a total landslide victory for Zuriel, Zegan, and the Speaker Zolan, who switched sides and threw his delegation's entire support behind the vote. We have to move fast to regain the initiative. Zegan thought for a moment, then went on to say, my programming instructions for the gathering of elemental materials focus on getting the Pave material to stabilize the starfires of Helius. Pave has highest binding energy among the elemental materials and is effective for this purpose. It will douse the accelerating AX2 fusion and prevent Helius going nebula. But it cannot replenish the dwindling AX1 fuel in Hellas. I never expected that the humans would possess nuclear technology far more advanced than what we had before our atomic war outbreak. Our discovery of UX-235/238 on SOL3 is not as surprising as we first thought. We must reprogram our mass-gathering entities to locate, secure and bring their nuclear devices back to Heliu. Zevon, I will have the priesthood prepare the shielded fuel depots to receive these devices you secure.